Chat, we're about to have an authentic driving experience. You know why? Because I am eepy. Like 9 p.m. I'm already like, wow, I could go to bed right now. I am very tired. Yeah, I don't know how well tonight's gonna go. I think I'm only gonna stream for like 2 hours or something, because like I'm pretty sure I'm gonna pass out before then if I spend like just a few more hours awake. But yeah, Windows internals. It's been a good month or so since we last read it. Surprise Eep stream. Let's go. You know, funny enough, Ren did tell me, it was like, wow, you're tired, you're gonna have a sleep stream soon. I'm like, how do people do sleep streams? Like, it's gotta be the most uncomfortable sleeping experience. Like, you have to sleep with headphones on or like near a mic. That doesn't sound very comfortable to set up and or to sleep with. Yeah, I guess before I also start, I gotta say, chat, I've been having issues with my jaw lately, so I don't know how well I'm gonna be able to speak for long periods of time. We'll see. It's been an ongoing issue for several months now. I kind of got it looked into, and basically what the doctor told me was like, you're too stressed. You gotta get some more sleep. I'm like, you know what? You're right. I could use some more sleep. I could use some less stress. But regardless, we're gonna proceed. So, last time we left off at threats internals. So, when I was on the plane coming back from VP, I actually did read a tiny bit ahead of what we're about to read the stream. It's not gonna be anything too. I didn't really read too deep into it, so it's probably still gonna be new to me regardless. And yeah, I guess before we start, we should probably take a nap. And turn that off first. Okay. All right. Give me a second. Let me just get comfortable. Right. Okay. Thread internals. This section discusses the internal structures used within the kernel and some in user mode to manage a thread, unless explicitly stated otherwise. You can assume that anything in this section applies to both user mode threads and kernel mode system threads. Data structures. At the operating system level, a Windows thread is represented by an executive thread object. The executive thread object encapsulates an E-thread structure, which in turn contains a K-thread structure as its first member. Also, before I continue, just a reminder, if you haven't watched my stream for much, if I sound a little bit weird, or if I fail to pronounce a few things correctly, that's probably because I'm tired. I noticed my reading ability goes down the hill as soon as I'm starting to get a little bit tired. So, I hope you won't mind that too much. Yeah. These are illustrated in Figure 4-1 E-thread and Figure 4-2 K-thread. The E-thread structure and the other structures it points to exist in the system address space. The only exception is the thread environment block, or the TEB, which exists in the process address space, similar to a PEB, because a user mode component needs to access it. Okay, calm down. Thank you. And you can pause right now if you want to see the structures for E thread and K thread. The Windows Subsystem Process, CSRSS, maintains a parallel structure for each thread created in a Windows Subsystem application, called the CSR thread. For threads that have called a Windows Subsystem user or GDI function, the kernel mode portion of the Windows Subsystem, the Win32k.sys, maintains a per-thread data structure, a W32 thread, that the K-thread structure points to. I just realized I didn't have YouTube chat on. Could you provide links to documents ref you read in the YouTube description if it's publicly available? So the book you're seeing on screen right now is called Windows Internals. It is unfortunately not a paid book, so technically I'm not supposed to be showing you this on stream. But I don't think Microsoft is going to come out and get me, I hope. But if you would like to get your own copy, you can go to the Microsoft Press Store to buy it online. You can buy it either the PDF version or the physical copy. Our current version we're reading is Windows Internals Edition 7, Part 1. Alright, note that the fact that the executive high-level graphics-related Win32k thread structure is pointed to by K-thread instead of E-thread appears to be a layer violation or oversight in the standard kernel abstraction architecture. The scheduler and other low-level components do not use this field. You might notice that we actually read this part last time. It's mainly because I feel like if we're going to continue reading, we might as well start off at the beginning of the chapter anyways. Besides, it's not like it's particularly long. Most of the fields illustrated in Figure 4-1 are self-explanatory. The first member of the E thread is called TCB. This is short for Thread Control Block, which is a structure of type K-thread. Following that are the thread identification information. The process identification information, including a pointer to the owning process, so that its environment information can be accessed. Security information in the form of a pointer to the access token and the impersonation information. Fields relating to the asynchronous local procedure call, LPC, messages, pending out request, the IRPs, and Windows 10 specific fields related to power management, described in Chapter 6 IO System, and CPU sets, described later in this chapter. Some of the key fields are covered in more detail elsewhere in this book. For more details on the internal structure of an E-thread structure, you can use the kernel debugger DT command to display its format. This is way more chaotic than I thought. This is your first time? Because if so, welcome. This is basically how every one of these streams go. I mean, it's not even too bad yet. We haven't crashed. Yet. Let's take a closer look at the two of the key thread data structures referred to in the preceding text, E-thread and K-thread. The K-thread structure, which is the TCP member of the E-thread, contains information that the Windows kernel needs to perform thread scheduling, synchronization, and timekeeping functions. Experiments. Displaying E-thread and K-thread structures. You can display the E-thread and K-thread structures with the DT command in the kernel debugger. The following output shows the format of an E-thread on a 64-bit Windows 10 system. Now, we will also fire up our VM for this, just so we have a point of reference. So let me grab my VM real quick. Okay. We will set to 10 AP should be fine. Give me a moment to chat. Display settings. Can you do 10 AP, please? Thank you. Keep changes. Right. Okay. When debug. Okay. So, right, we need to attach the kernel. Attach to kernel. Give it a little bit. Or are we leaving W internals today? We'll see. I gotta wait for it to load symbols. Give it a little bit. Nope. Can I? Give it a little bit. You know, it'd be better if I could just attach to the VM instead of running the debugger in the VM. That might be a smarter idea, actually. Can I do that? Hang on. I should be able to. Oop. How does this work? Attach. Screw it. And we will type in DT NT exclamation mark E thread. E thread. Okay. You can display the K thread with a similar command by typing DT NT exclamation mark E underscore E thread TCP. So it's just with TCP appended. Okay, so we can just do, okay. K thread. Ah, there we go. Experiment using the kernel debugger exclamation mark thread command. The kernel debugger exclamation mark thread command dumps a subset of information in the thread data structures. Some key elements of the information the kernel debugger displays can't be displayed by any utility, including the following information. Internal structure addresses, priority details, stack information, the pending out requests, the for threads in the wait state, the list of objects the thread is waiting for. To display thread information, use either the exclamation mark process command, which displays all the threads of a process after displaying the process information, or the exclamation mark thread command with the address of a thread object to display a specific thread. Let's first find all instances of explore.exe. So that will be exclamation mark process 00 explore.exe. Give it a little bit. Remind me to look into attaching to the VM a kernel debugger after a stream, because otherwise this is gonna take a while every time. Well, while that's waiting, we'll select one of the instances and show its threads. Anytime now. How long is it gonna take for it to enumerate explorer.exe? There's only one. Well, while that's doing its thing, I suppose I could look into how to attach while we're waiting. What IP even is my instance on? Hang on. Oh, wait, it's on a completely different subnet. Oops. We should use DX, it's way faster. I would. But it's kind of... Yep, there we go. It's... it took a little while. It was already running, that's why I couldn't really do anything else. Exclamation mark, process, and then... Okay. Can't stay, but very cool to see Windows internals content. Thank you. And hope you have a good one. Did it go through? Oh, it's still busy. Okay. Well, you know what? We're gonna wait. We're gonna come back to it when it's done. For now, I will continue driving. That way we're not waiting around for it to do its thing. Oop. Is that another big rock ahead? Oh my god. Okay. I mean, I suppose we could read on while it's doing this thing. The list of threats is oh, we ran into something already. Wait, did I type the right command? Is it exclamation mark process? No, it was, yeah. Oh, it's still loading. Okay. Okay, that really does take a while. Alright, come on. Yeah, back on you go. And including you. Don't think I didn't see you. Maybe he's missing one headlight, but at least we're missing only one. Okay, I'll show you guys what it's doing right now. You can see that it's trying to list out the threads, but it's very slow. Well, I think the lesson learned here is maybe don't debug the kernel when you're attached on from the same machine. I really should look into how to get around this. Well, regardless, we can see that the list of threads is truncated for the sake of space. Each thread shows its address, the ethread, which can be passed to the ethread command. The client ID, the CID, process ID, and thread ID. The process ID for the preceding threads is the same, as they are part of the same explore.exe process. Holy shit, this lag. Ooh, wait. What? Oh. Okay, I don't know what this is doing here. Normally this is supposed to spawn on the road. You know what? Sure. Okay, I'm gonna pause it again. This is gonna lag again. Oop. Hello. Goodbye. Hello, snowman. What is this? Ooh, chocolate. Yummy. Oh. Great. You know, I'm starting to think maybe we should, like, drop this thing. Because, like, every time I pull it out, it's like, I get stuck. I don't even know what this is for, practically. Right, as I was saying, as they're part of the same explore.exe process, the threat environment block, TB, discussed momentarily, and the threat state, most should be in the wait state, with the reason for the wait in the parentheses. The next line may show the list of synchronization objects the thread is waiting on. To get more information on a specific thread, has its address to the !thread command. Which we won't be able to do until later. Why don't you give me a bus that's like pristine, but like it's missing its wheels. So, you know, so much for being pristine. You can see this is what it will look like with the ! thread. When are we getting Yaz and Yan? Whenever you'd like to. Hello, Ren. There's a lot of information about the thread, such as its priorities, stack details, user and kernel times, and much more. You'll look at many of these details throughout this chapter, and in Chapter 5, Memory Management, and in Chapter 6, IO Systems. More experiments. Oh my god, okay. Viewing thread information with T-list. The following output is the detailed display of a process produced by using T-list in the debugging tools for Windows. Do I have T-list on my VM? Oh, I do, apparently. Okay. Make sure you run TList in the same business. Okay. Notice the thread list shows Win32 start address. Hang on. So if we do, let me just use the terminal. TList Explorer. Okay. Here you go. Notice the thread list shows Win32 start address. This is the address passed to the create thread function by the application. All the other utilities except other Process Explorer that show the thread start address show the actual start address, a function in TDLO, not the application specific start address. Okay. Do I have a Win32 start address here? Yeah, we do. Okay. Well, that's a lot of them. Yep. Okay. The TB illustrated in figure 4-3 is one of the data structures explained in this section that exists in the process address space as opposed to the system space. Internally, it is made up of a header called Thread Information Block, TIB, which mainly existed for the compatibility with OS2 and Win9X applications. Also allows exceptions, stack information to be kept in a smaller structure when creating a new thread using an initial TIB. Nope. Okay. It's always this trunk hood that pops off. Well, at this time, you can, while I put this back on, you can take a look at the structure you see on screen right now. Here we go. Sick flip. I've seen better. TB stores information on for the image loader. Okay, hang on. The TB stores context information for the image loader and various Windows DLLs. Because these components run in user mode, they need a data structure writable from user mode. That's why this structure exists in the process address space instead of the system space, where it will be writable only from kernel mode. You can find the address of TB with kernel debugger !thread command. Experiment examining the TB. You can dump the TB structure with the !TB command in the kernel or user mode debugger. This command can be used on its own to dump the TB of the current thread of the debugger, or the TB address to get it from an arbitrary thread. In case of a kernel debugger, the current process must be set before issuing the command on the TB address, so the correct process context is used. To view a TB from a user mode debugger, follow these steps. Okay, this at least will run fine, because it's user mode. Shouldn't be too bad. So we attach to launch an executable, notepad.exe. Okay, so now if we go TB, we will see the exception list, stack base, stack limit, subsystem TIB, etc., etc. Now enter the G command or F5 to continue running. Okay, now hit open and then cancel. And or use the control break to open the break debug menu and choose break. How do I do that without using the... Oh, this. Right. Enter the tilde command to show all the threads in the process. Okay. Each thread shows its TB address. You can examine the specific thread by specifying its TB address to the TB command. Let's grab one. I hope you guys can see this well, by the way. Let me zoom this in a little bit better. There you go. Of course, it's possible to view the actual structures with the TB address. So what DT and TTL? Ooh, okay, so now you're gonna see the actual structure for it. Okay. Experiment examining the TB with a kernel debugger. Oh, we're gonna skip that because kernel debugger is running pretty badly right now. But you can take a look if you want. Okay. The CSR thread, illustrated in Figure 4-4, is analogous to the data structure CSR process, but it's applied to threads. As you might recall, this is maintained by each CSRSS process within the within the session, and identifies the Windows subsystem threads running within it. CSR threads stores a handle that CSRSS keeps for the thread, various flags, the client ID, thread ID, and process ID, and a copy of the thread's creation time. Note that the threads are registered with CSRSS when they send their first message to CSRSS, typically due to some APIs that requires notifying CSRSS of some operation or condition. Another experiment. You can dump the CSR thread structure with the DT command in the kernel debugger, while the debugger context is set to the CSRSS process. You can do that if you want to. Don't worry, we're gonna fix the kernel debugger thing next stream. But for now, I'm just gonna ignore those for now. Finally, the W32 thread structure, illustrated in Figure 4-5, is analogous to the data structure of W32 process, but supplies to threads. This structure mainly contains information useful for the GDI subsystem, brushes, and device context attributes, and DirectX, as well as user mode print driver, the UMPD framework that vendors use to write user mode printer drivers. Finally, it contains a rendering state useful for desktop compositing and anti-aliasing. Okay, take a nap. In the meantime, I'll get my tea. What's that on my head? Is that my hat? Oh, I guess I accidentally removed my hat. Okay. We will... Oh. Oops. I apparently accidentally ran into a rock. Cool. Oh, that's not what I meant. Thank you. I guess we're going right. Okay. Birth of a thread. A thread's life cycle starts when two processes like each other very much. No, I'm kidding. A thread's life cycle starts when a process, in the context of some thread, such as the thread running the main function, creates a new thread. The request filters down to the Windows executive, where the process manager allocates a space for a thread object and calls the kernel to initialize the thread control block, the K thread. As mentioned, the various thread creation functions eventually end up at create remote thread X. Alright, calm down with the scary music. We'll put on something else. Play. Why do I keep getting Streamlabs login notification? Okay. There we go. The following steps are taken inside this function in kernel32.dll to create a Windows thread. First, it converts the Windows API parameters to native flags and builds a native structure describing object parameters, object attributes described in Chapter 8 in Part 2. It builds an attribute list with 2 entries, client ID and TB address. For more information on attribute list, see the section Flow of Create Process in Chapter 3. And third, it determines whether the thread is created in the calling process or another process indicated by the handle passed in. If the handle is equal to the pseudo handle returned from get current process with a value of -1, then it's the same process. If the process handle is different, it could still be a valid handle to the same process, so a call is made to NT-query information process and into DLL to find out whether that is indeed the case. Hello blank. Fourth, it calls NT-create thread X and NTDLL to make the transition to the executive in kernel mode, and continues inside the function with the same name and arguments. NT-create thread X inside the executive creates and initializes the user mode thread context. Its structure is architecture specific, and then calls PSP create thread to create a suspended executive thread object. For description on steps performed by this function, see descriptions of stage 3 and stage 5 in chapter 3 in the section Flow of Create Process. Then the function returns, eventually ending back in user mode at create remote thread X. Create remote thread X allocates an activation context for the thread used by side-by-side assembly support. It then queries the activation stack to see if it requires activation and activates it if needed. The activation stack pointer is saved in the new threads TB. 7th, unless the caller created the thread with the create suspended flag set, the thread is now resumed so that it can be scheduled for execution. When the thread starts running, it executes the step described in Chapter 3 in the section Stage 7, forming process initialization, in the context of a new process before calling the actual user's specified start address. The thread handle and the thread ID are returned to the caller. Next up, examining thread activity. Examining thread activity is especially important if you're trying to determine why a process that is hosting multiple services is running, such as SVC host, DLL host, or LSASS, or why a process has stopped responding. There are several tools that expose various elements of the state of Windows threads: WinDebug and user process attach and kernel debugging mode, Performance Monitor, and Process Explorer. The tools that show thread scheduling information are listed in the section Thread Scheduling. I wonder if when and if they're going to ever acknowledge process hacker or system informer. I mean, I know it's a third-party tool, and everything mentioned thus far is technically somewhat owned by Microsoft, but you know, it'd be nice. To view threads in the process with a Process Explorer, select the process and double-click it. Yeah, I'm struggling with pronunciation today. To view the thread in the process with Process Explorer, select the process and double-click it to open its Properties dialog box. Alternatively, right-click on the process and select the Properties menu item. Is that a building on top of a hill? Okay, that's new. Hang on. Alright, car, don't go anywhere, okay? Stay here. What slides open? Okay, coolant reservoir. Not very helpful. Octopuses. Octopi.
You think I cannot see you?
Goodbye. I see you were having fun back there. Sure. Ooh. Nice setup you have here. With TV too. No way. You know, we should reload this gun. Right, okay. Okay, there we go. Thank you very much. Then click on the Threads tab. This tab shows the list of threads in the process and the 4 columns of information for each thread. Its ID, their percentage of CPU consumed based on their refresh interval configured, the number of cycles charged to a thread, and the thread start address. You can sort by any of these 4 columns. I wonder why they didn't include a screenshot. New threads that are created are highlighted in green, and threads that are highlighted that exit are highlighted in red. To configure the highlight duration, open the options menu and choose difference highlight duration. This might be helpful to discover unnecessary thread creation occurring during the process. In general, threads should be created at process startup, not every time a request is processed inside the process. As you select each thread in the list, Process Explorer displays the thread ID, start time, state, CPU time counters, and number of cycles charged, and number of context switches, the ideal processor, and its group, the IO priority, the memory priority, and base and current dynamic priority. There's a kill button, which terminates the individual thread, but this should be used with extreme care. Another option is the suspend button, which prevents the thread from forward execution and thus prevents a runaway thread from consuming CPU time. However, this can also lead to deadlocks and should be used the same care as the kill button. Finally, the permission button allows you to view the security descriptor of the thread. See Chapter 7 Security for more information on security descriptors. I think it's a bit early, but I think it's time to break out my cough drop. That'll at least help with my pronunciation a little bit. Also, the scary music returns. Okay, cough drop. Don't run in. Hands on the wheel. You know, I did bring cough drops to VB 2025 just in case I needed it. Turns out I didn't need it at all. Okay. Unlike Task Manager and all the other processor monitoring tools, Process Explorer uses the clock cycle counter designed for thread runtime accounting, described later in this chapter, instead of a clock interval timer. So you will see a significant different view of CPU consumption using Process Explorer. This is because many threads run for such a short time that they are seldom, if ever, the currently running thread when the clock interval timer interrupt occurs. As a result, they are not charged for much of their CPU time, leading clock-based tools to perceive a CPU percentage of 0%. On the other hand, the total number of clock cycles represents the actual number of processor cycles that each thread in the process occurred. It is independent of the clock interval timer's resolution because the count is maintained internally by the processor at each cycle, updated by the Windows at each interrupt entry. Final accumulation is done before a context switch. The thread start address is displayed in the form module exclamation mark function. Sorry, excuse me. Where module is the name of the exe or DLL. The function name relies on access to symbol files for the module. See the section Experiment Viewing Process Details with a Process Explorer in Chapter 1, Concept and Tools. If you're unsure what the module is, click the Module button to open the Process Explorer file properties dialog box for the module containing the thread start address, for example, the exe or DLL. Note, for threads created by Windows createThread function, Process Explorer displays the function passed to the createThread, not the actual thread start function. This is because Windows threads start at a common thread startup wrapper function, RTL user thread start in the DLL. If Process Explorer showed the actual start address, most threads and processes would appear to have started at the same address, which would not be helpful in trying to understand what the code the thread is executing. Oh, hang on. There's something down here. Hello, person YouTube chat. Welcome. Nothing. What? Do you think this will work on my car? Where'd it go? Oh, there it is. I think this will fit. Oh. Flawless. Sure. Oh. Wait. Do you think that'll fit? Not what I was expecting, but sure. Okay. Cool shades. Oh wait, why is my bot showing the same message twice? Hang on. Let me try restarting that. See if that helps. Let's see what we have here. We have milk, not very helpful. Okay. These lights? Holy shit, there are lights in this building? Nope. I tell you what, we'll sleep first. Okay. Oil. Is that an alarm clock? Holy shit, it is. Okay. Well, let's see how well this works. I wonder if, Ooh. Holy shit, we have 3 headlights now. Wow, okay. Okay. However, if Process Explorer can't query the user-defined startup address, such as in the case of a protected process, it will show the wrapper function. So you will see all threads starting at RTL user thread start. So let's see if that is the case with System Informer. If I remember correctly, I think it is. So if we do, okay, stop debugging. We will do a random normal process, such as notepad. We can see that it shows pretty much where all the thread starts, the offset actually is. So you can see the individual functions here. But what happens if we do a protected process? Let's say LSASS. Okay, let's try a system process instead. Okay, you just get access is denied. So now if we compare that to Process Explorer, proc ex, oh, I don't have it installed. Cool. Intern. Wow, okay. Give me a second. It might be easier if we just copy it from the root partition instead. Windows LT evaluation copy. As a running Windows on modified smart doorknob at AM5 socket and PCIe ports, so true. Windows LTSC is actually really good. If you want like very lightweight Windows 11 installation. Hello? Paste? What? Can I copy this? Okay, for some reason. Oh, wait, no, I know why. Hang on. Give me a second. Yeah, there we go. That should work now. So like for example, when I had Nuck, when I was loaned a Nuck unit, I had the LTSC version installed. It was very good. In fact, I would even consider it daily use material. It's really pretty good. Okay, so now if we open notepad.exe, threads, please download and install Windows debugging tools. Okay, we're not going to do that right now. Okay, so it's pretty much shows more or less the same thing. This one shows... Oh. Okay. More or less what we expected then. Won't get to see much information. So, yeah, I would say it's kind of close to what System Informer is already showing. What's this Christmas music? Jangle Bells, okay. Okay. The thread start address displayed might not be enough information to pinpoint what the thread is doing and which component within the process is responsible for the CPU consumed by the thread. It is especially true if the thread start address is a generic startup function. For example, if the function name does not indicate what the thread is actually doing, in this case examining the thread stack might answer the question. To view the stack of a thread, double-click on the thread of interest or select it, and click on the Stack Up button. Process Explorer displays the thread stack, both user and kernel, if the thread was in kernel mode. Note while the user mode debuggers, WinDebug, NTSD, CDB, will permit you to attach to a process and display the user thread stack for a thread. Process Explorer shows, okay, nice jump, shows both the user and kernel stack with in one easy click of a button. You can also examine the user and kernel mode thread stacks using WinDebug in the local kernel debugging mode, as the next two experiments demonstrate. Okay, so what we'll do, open the VM back up. We will take a look at the stack, as it says. Take a look at Notepad again. A regular Notepad, not the new Notepad. This Notepad. All my homies hate it. As I was saying, all my homies hate the new Notepad app. There we go. No, I'm kidding. It's actually pretty good for most people. Not me, though. Yeah, here. So now if we go to Notepad, thread stack. There you go. You can see the thread stack from here. Now, what about System Informer? Oh, right. It shows the stack by default when you double click on it. Right. So what happens if we double click on here? It also shows the stack as well. Okay. I see. When looking at 32-bit... Okay, I'm kind of stuck on the rock. Hang on a second. Why is that open? Whoop, 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 whoop. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. I thought I put the handbrake. Well, stop. Oh my god. It's gonna roll down the hill again. I swear to god. Hello, Twilight. Get back. Oh my god, it's rolled down another hill. Ah. Well, when looking at 32-bit processes running on the 64-bit system as a WAL64 process, see Chapter 8 in Part 2 for more information on WAL64. Process Explorer shows both the 32-bit and 64-bit stack for threads, because at the time of the real 64-bit system call, the thread has been switched to a 64-bit stack and context. Simply looking at the thread's 64-bit stack would reveal only half the story. The 64-bit part of the thread with the WAL64's thinking code. So when examining WAL64 processes, be sure to take into account of both 32-bit and 64-bit stacks. Can I Can I oh, come on. There we go. Nope, don't think I didn't see you there. Let's try this again. Okay. What? Okay. I just had a little out-of-body experience there. You know what this music reminds me of? Stardew Valley. It's got that same vibe. Right. Experiment. Viewing a thread stack with a user mode debugger. Follow these steps to attach WinDebug to a process and view the thread information in stack. So run WinDebug again. We will attach to Notepad. List the existing threads with the tilde command. Each thread shows its debugger ID, the client ID, process ID, thread ID, its suspended count. There should be 1 most of the time, as is suspended because with the breakpoint, TB, address, and whether it has been frozen using the debugger command. Here you go. Note the dot preceding the thread 5 in the output. Wow, that is very tiny. I thought that could have been a misprint. That there is a dot there. I don't know if you can see it. This is the current debugger thread. Issue the K command to view the call stack. So we have a little dot here as well. So we're in thread 3. K. Okay. The debugger injected a thread into a notepad process that issues a breakpoint instruction, the debug breakpoint. To view the call stack of another thread, use the tilde un K command, where un is the thread number seen by WinDebug. This does not change the current debugger thread. Here's an example for thread 2. Okay. ISK for call stack. Yeah, I don't really understand WinDebug command. Like, as much as I'm reading through this, I'm gonna forget the next day, because they don't make a whole lot of sense to me. To switch the debugger to another thread, use the tilde number S command. Okay, I guess S at least stands for switch, right? That I can understand. So we'll switch to 0S. Now we can do K again. There you go. Note that though a thread might be in kernel mode at the time, a user mode debugger shows its last function that's still in user mode. For example, the ZW get user get message in the preceding output. Okay, I'm gonna skip the kernel debugger part because that's very slow. Don't have time for that. Okay. Limitations on protected process threads. As discussed in Chapter 3, protected processes, classic protected or PPL, have several limitations in terms of which access rights will be granted. Give me a second. Let me just fix my car. We're already missing one headlight, by the way. Technically 2 now, but you get the idea. Where did the other one go? We just got that other headlight. Come on. Have several limitations in terms of which... Wait. Sorry, I forgot to unhide the debugger. As discussed in Chapter 3, protected processes, classic, protected, or PPL, have several limitations in terms of which access rights will be granted, even to the users with the highest privilege on the system. These limitations will also apply to threads inside such process. This ensures that the actual code running inside the protected processes cannot be hijacked or otherwise affected through standard Windows functions, which requires access rights that are not granted for protected process threads. In fact, the only permission granted to are thread suspend resume and thread set and query limited information. Are you debugging? Notepad. Like literally, this is just Notepad. Oh, gas. Why is there boss music playing right now? Notepad's not that scary. Could maybe the new Notepad. Yeah, that's not better. Okay, what other... Oh, okay, I'm starting to think we should get another... soundtrack. Give me a second. When in doubt, play more Mutant Ninja soundtrack. Okay. Oop. Alcohol water, my favorite. Hello. Goodbye. It's just minding its own business. Ooh, oil. Okay. You might be like, why don't you just drive the car over? But see, the thing is, when I do that, I feel like I might... Oh, it's full already, okay. Might not be able to figure out which way is which. I'm gonna do that. It's not that big of a hassle anyways. Wow, this bar sucks. Never mind. Maybe it doesn't suck. On second thought, this place doesn't have any food. This bar sucks. Are you gonna try to use piss and milk as coolant again? Thankfully, our car doesn't really need coolant to operate. Unless we run into another car that does. Ooh. 07. That's a lot of reject glasses. Okay, a suitcase. Cool. Lamp. Doesn't do anything. Okay. Hey, buddy, do you have anything useful here? Oh, okay, that's useful. Move that over. Legs, my favorite. This music gives me PTSD. Because, like, this is one of the boss fights in Nikkei. Gas. 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 I will take the other one, actually. Well... Okay, here's what we can do. Never mind, we can't put in inventory. Okay. And that is oil. Don't need that right now, but I'll take this. You can go in there. I'm taking that. Oh, it's not quite sun up yet. So we'll do the next experiment, which is view unprotected process thread information with Process Explorer. In this experiment, you'll view protected process thread information. Follow these steps. Find any protected or PPL process, such as audio DG or CSS RSS, inside the process list, and open the properties dialog box. So we do that with both Process Explorer and just the System Informer. Hello, Doge. So if we go to CSRSS, there we go. You can see that is nothing. Process Explorer doesn't show the Win32 thread start address. Instead, it displays a standard thread start wrapper in 17DLL. Actually, it doesn't even say that, which is interesting. I'm not sure if it's because I'm on Windows 11. If you click on Stack button, you'll get an error. Enable to access threads. Note that although the base and dynamic properties are shown, the I/O and memory priorities are not, nor cycles. There's an example of the limited access right. Thread query limited information versus full query information access right. Try to kill a thread inside the protected process. When you do, notice yet another access denied error. Yep. Can't. So yeah, we kind of tried that earlier already, alongside System Form, because it's gonna show more or less the same. Yep, access is denied. Oh, wait, I just realized you can't normally terminate CSRSS, huh? But you can kill win init, right? Oh, you can't. Huh. Okay, I mean, I guess that makes, I mean, that makes sense, of course. But I think that makes, what 60 Vivid Tail posted the other day on Twitter, even funnier. He posted this line of PowerShell code that was really funny. Yep, not now. So, as well, it's gonna look a little bit hard to describe at first glance if you don't know PowerShell. Basically, if we break this down real quick, do I have VS Code in here? I guess I don't. That's fine. We can do VS Code.dev. Now, where's the code.dev? Okay, there we go. Okay, if we break this down, language, PowerShell. So, 1 to 9 just means 1 to 9. And the percentage sign just stands for each. SAJB stands for start job. So if we break this down, you can see that it's actually for each object. This start job. And we can split each of these lines by replacing these with the next line. And what's doing here is basically calling whatever's gonna be $9. It's gonna first call find Windows X A. It's gonna use the first 4 parameters. I'll be honest, I still don't really know what this is. This is supposed to be a window handle, but don't really know what this represents. And it calls end task, and then it's also gonna try to call raise hard error. It's gonna call that 9 times, and watch what happens when you do that. Under a non-privileged PowerShell. Watch what happens. This is really funny. We'll take the shorter version, just so it won't yell at me. Yep, there it is. That's a really funny DOS finding. Oh man. Yeah, normally you're not supposed to be able to kill a critical process unless you're elevated, but with that you could just kill it without elevating. Also, it's making my stream lag because yeah, I'll just do a reset. What does any of that mean? Don't worry about it, Crispy. Good morning. Also, it wasn't until he wrote that I realized, or they, I don't really know what they are, but it wasn't until they wrote that I realized you can have surplus invocation arguments to p-invoke, or rather x64 in general, because x64 AIB apparently doesn't really care, or rather it's up to the caller to clean up rather than the callee. So you can just pass the extra arguments when you call an API function, it's just gonna be fine. So if we take a look back at the OS code. You'll notice that it's actually reusing the same pinvoke DLL import pinvoke member definition for find window X, ntask, ntrace hardware. If you know these three APIs, you'll know that they have both. All three of them have like wildly different number of arguments that's supposed to take. For example, find window X is supposed to only take 4, ntask takes 1. I think ntrace hardware takes 6. And so apparently you could just use like the minimum amount that all three of them use, which is because ntrace hardware takes 6, I think. You can just do that, and when you call find window X, it's only going to use the first 4, so it takes that just fine. So I didn't realize this until I saw this post. And so I wrote something. I didn't realize it could be shortened like this. So I wrote this. Need to run elevated. So initially I thought when I call NT shutdown system, I had to like use a completely different pinvoke call. But just because of this, I went from this to that, which makes it shorter than I was expecting. And so today I learned, I guess. Yeah, if you're curious what this does, it just calls NT shutdown system, which is like the final stage of shutdown in Windows. So if you do this, yeah, there won't be any shutdown screen or logout screen. It'll just literally yoink the system offline. Remember there's something similar like this. You couldn't do some operation, but if you ask a few times, I think it was the reforge just allowed you to. So I'm still not entirely sure how 60 Vivitel's call worked there. I didn't know you could just raise hardware on critical process like that. I have no. I'm still. I looked at it for like 5 to 10 minutes. I still couldn't really figure out how that POC worked. Anyways, we're far off topic. Let's get back to reading. Okay. What happened? I wasn't looking. Oh, wait. No, okay, we were just done with... Right. Okay. Thread scheduling. Okay, what's with... Hello, what are you guys doing here? That's a lot of you. Having a party. Why do I keep getting Streamlabs authorization pop up? Who's asking? OBS? Or... Is this StreamerBot? I think it's StreamerBot, actually. weird because I authorized earlier. Where is it redirecting to? Okay. If it shows up again, I'll see. Weird. Okay, thread scheduling. This section describes the Windows scheduling policies and algorithms. The first subsection provides a condensed description of how scheduling works on Windows and the definition of key terms. Then Windows priority levels are described from both the Windows API and Windows kernel point of view. After a review of the relevant Windows utilities and tools that relate to scheduling, the detailed data structures and algorithms that make up the Windows scheduling system are presented, including a description of common scheduling scenarios and how thread selection, as well as processor selection, occurs. Overview of Windows scheduling. Windows implements a priority-driven preemptive scheduling system. At least one of the highest priority runnable ready threads always runs. Calm down. With the caveat that certain high priority threads ready to run might be limited by the processors on which they might be allowed to or prefer to run on. Phenomenon called processor affinity. Processor affinity is defined based on a given processor group, which collects up to 64 processors. By default, threads can run only on available processors within the processor group associated with the process. Is to maintain compatibility with older versions of Windows, which support only 64 processors. Hang on a second. Okay. Stop. I didn't. No. Stop. There we go. Developers can alter processor affinity by using appropriate APIs or by setting affinity mask in the image header. And users can use tools to change affinity at runtime or process creation. Okay, this is a little distracting. However, although multiple threads in the process can be associated with different groups, a thread on its own can only run on processors available within its assigned group. Additionally, developers can choose to create group-aware applications which use extended scheduling APIs to associate logical processors on different groups with the affinity of their threads. Doing so converts the process into multi-group process that can theoretically run as thread on any available processor within the machine. After a thread is selected to run, it runs for an amount of time called a quantum. A quantum is the length of a thread that's allowed to run before another thread at the same priority level is given a turn to run. I've never heard of this term before, at least not in this context. Also, our hood is gone. Where did it fly off to? Well, there it is. And all of our headlights are gone again. Well, cool. Not that I need a headlight anyways. Thanks, game. Oh, man. Okay. Quantum value can vary from system to system and process to process for any of the three reasons. 1. System configuration settings. Long or short quantums, variable or fixed quantums, and priority separation. Foreground or background status. Foreground or background status of a process. Use of a job object to alter the quantum. These details are explained in the quantum section later in this chapter. A thread might not... Oh, so let me get back to... a quantum is the length of time a thread is allowed to run before... Okay, I see. A thread might not get to complete its quantum. However, because Windows implements a preemptive scheduler, that is, if another thread with a higher priority becomes ready to run, the currently running thread might be preempted before finishing its time slice. In fact, a thread can be selected to run next to... damn it. That's what I get for focusing on the text. In fact, a thread can be selected to run next and be preempted before even beginning its quantum. The Windows scheduling... That's a lot of flips. Holy shit. You done yet? You done yet? You good? You good? Okay, thanks. You can tell the physics engine it was just thinking, like, what am I gonna do next? This game is very well optimized. The Windows scheduling code is implemented in the kernel. There is no single quote-unquote scheduler module or routine. However, the code is spread throughout the kernel in which scheduling-related events occur. The routines that perform these duties are collectively called the kernel's dispatcher. The following events might record a thread dispatching. When the thread becomes ready to execute, for example, a thread has been newly created or has just been released from the wait state. A thread leaves the running state because its time quantum ends. It terminates, it yields execution, or it enters a wait state. A thread's priority changes, either because of a system service call or because Windows itself changes the priority value. A thread's processor affinity changes so that it will no longer run on the processor on which it was running. Okay. Gas. Okay. Might take a short break in a little bit. Yeah, restroom break. Wow, thanks. That barely added anything. See a nice bike up there. Oil. Don't really need it. Okay. Take a nap. And now, I'll be taking a restroom break. I'll be right back. Also, why is this so loud? Yeah, music went a little bit too hard there. Someone just filed a PR for IDAD 9.2 compatibility for Kappa. Looks good, but I think they you know how when someone files a PR and 95% of the code is them reformatting the code? Like, instead of like 1 tab, it's now 2 tabs or whatever. Yeah, it's kind of what that PR looks like. Thank you. So fun fact, I actually did my first English Teto or Gumi cover was with this song, and it was never released. I'm still debating whether or not I should release it at some point, because it's my first attempt with English and it didn't sound the best. But I like this song. Right. Okay. Anyways, continue reading. At each of these junctions, Windows must determine which thread... Okay, what a jump. Why some airtime there? Windows must determine which thread should run next on the logical processor that was running on the thread, if applicable, or on which logical processor the thread should now run. After a logical processor has selected a new thread to run, eventually performs the context switch to it. A context switch is the procedure of saving the volatile processor state associated with running a thread, loading another thread's volatile state, and then starting a new thread's execution. As noted, Windows schedules at the thread granularity level. This approach makes sense when you consider that processes don't run. Rather, they only provide resources and the context in which their threads run. Because scheduling decisions are made strictly on a thread basis, no consideration is given to what process a thread belongs to. For example, if process A has 10 runnable threads, process B has 2 runnable threads, and all 12 threads have at the same priority, each thread would theoretically receive 1/12 of CPU time. That is, Windows wouldn't give 50% of the CPU to process A and 50% to process B. And maybe I regret driving up here, because that's a lot of rocks. You know, at least I don't have to use the throttle. Oop. Okay, priority levels. To understand these thread scheduling algorithms, one must first understand priority levels that Windows uses. As illustrated in Figure 4-3, Windows uses 32 priority levels internally, ranging from 0 to 31, 31 being the highest. These values divide as follows: 16 real-time levels, 16 through 31, 16 variable levels, 0 through 15, which is level 0 is reserved for 0-page thread, described in Chapter 5. Okay. Holy shit, we went flying. Woo! And our trunk is gone again. Actually, both trunks. Oh, 07 to the rear trunk again. Okay, as you can see in the figure there's a different threat priority level. Threat priority levels are assigned from two different perspectives, those of the Windows API and those of the Windows kernel. Windows API first organizes processes by priority class, to which they're assigned at creation. The numbers in parentheses represent the internal process priority class recognized by the kernel. Real time, high, above normal, normal, below normal, and idle. The Windows API set priority class allows changing the process priority class to one of these levels. It then assigns a relative priority of the individual threads within those processes. Here, the numbers represent a priority delta that is applied to the process base priority. There's the time critical, highest, above normal, normal, below normal, lowest, and my wheel fell off. Okay. And idle, like I was saying. Time critical and idle levels. Really? Okay. Sure. I will never understand the physics in this game. Okay. Like I was saying, time critical and idle levels plus 15 and minus 15 are called saturation values and represent specific levels that are applied rather than true offsets. These values can be passed to the set thread priority Windows API to change the thread's relative priority. Therefore, in the Windows API, each thread has a base priority that's a function of its process priority class and its relative thread priority. In the kernel, the process priority class is converted to a base priority using the PSP priority table global array, and the process priority class indices shown earlier, which sets priority for 8, 13, 14, 6, and 10 respectively. It's a fixed mapping that cannot be changed. The thread relative priority is then applied as differential to this base priority. For example, the highest thread will receive a thread base priority of 2 levels higher than base priority of its process. The mapping from Windows priority to to internal Windows numeric priority as shown graphically in Figure 4-7 and textually in Table 4-1. This music is kind of fitting for this desert. So as you can see, a graphic view of the available thread priorities from a Windows API perspective. We have the normal priorities and real-time priorities. And oh no, we have the normal dynamic priorities and real-time priorities. So there's the real-time, high priority, above normal, etc, etc. You'll note that the time critical and idle relative thread priorities maintain their respective values. Regardless of the process priority class. Now, what are you doing here? Get out of here. Unless it's real time. This is because Windows API requests saturation of the priority from the kernel by passing in +16 or -16 as requested by the relative priority. The formula used to get these values are as follows: high priority equals 3-1. If time critical, high priority +1 divide by 2. If idle, negative high priority +1 divide by 2. These values are then recognized by the kernel as a request for saturation. In the saturation field, the K thread is set. For positive saturation, I'm getting tired of this trunk hood popping off. It's popped off like 3 times in the last less than 2 minutes. Right. For positive saturation, this causes the thread to receive the highest priority within its priority class, dynamic or real time. For negative saturation, it's the lowest possible one. Additionally, future requests to change the base priority of the process will no longer affect the base priority of these threads because saturated threads are skipped in the processing code. As shown in Table 4-1, threads have 7 levels of possible priorities to set as viewed from the Windows API, 6 levels for the high priority class. The real-time priority class actually allows setting all priority levels between 16 and 31 as shown in Figure 4-7. The values not covered by the standard constants shown in the table can be specified with the values -7, -6, -5, -4, -3, 3, 3, 4, 5, and 6 as an argument to set thread priority. See the upcoming section, real-time priorities, for more information. Regardless of how the thread's priority came to be by using the Windows API, a combination of process priority class and a relative thread priority, from point of view of the scheduler, only the final result matters. For example, priority level 10 can be obtained in 2 ways. A normal priority class process 8 with thread relative priority of highest, or an above normal priority class process and a normal thread relative priority. From the scheduler perspective, these settings lead to the same value 10. So these threads are identical in terms of the priority. So it's like 2 different values added together. I did not know this. Whereas the process has only a single base priority value, each thread has 2 priority values. Current
dynamic, and base. Scheduling decisions are made based on the current priority. As explained in the upcoming section called Priority Boosts. Under certain circumstances, the system increases the priority of threads in the dynamic range 1 through 15 for brief periods. Windows never adjusts to priority threads in the real-time range 16 through 31. For some reason I keep saying 61. So they always have the same base and current priority. A thread's initial base priority is inherited from the process base priority. A process by default inherits its base priority from the process that created it. You can override this behavior on the create process function by using the command line start command. You can also change the process priority after it is created by using the set priority class function, or by using various tools that expose that function, such as Task Manager or Process Explorer. Right-click on the process and choose New Priority Class. For example, you can lower the priority of a CPU-intensive process so it does not interfere with normal system activities. Changing the priority of a process changes the thread priorities up or down, or relative settings remain the same. Normally, user applications and services start with a normal base priority, so their initial thread typically executes at priority level 8. However, some Windows system processes, such as Session Manager, Service Control Manager, and Local Security Authentication process, have a base process priority slightly higher than default. Ooh, okay. Gas station. Time for a nap anyways. This higher default value ensures that threads in these processes will all start at a higher priority than the default value of 8. Hello? Goodbye. I might call it soon, because I'm tired. How's our gas doing? Yeah, we can refill that. I've never seen a gas station with fence before. I mean, this game. I have no idea what that says, but cat. And metal bar. Yeah, it'd be nice if these worked. I've never seen a building like this before. This is new. Ooh. Oil. I like this song. Oh, hello. Hidden oil. I don't really need it, but I might as well take it outside. Nothing really neat, it seems. Ooh, nice jump. More oil. Don't need it. Sure. Okay. Okay. Well, time to wrap around. What is your Japanese? I rarely hear Japanese songs in Nikkei. It's usually English. Huh. Real-time priorities. You can raise or lower thread priorities within the dynamic range of any application. However, you must have the increased scheduling priority privilege, the SE increase base priority privilege, to enter real-time range. Be aware that many important Windows kernel mode system threads run in real-time priority range. So if threads spend excessive time running in this range, they might block critical system functions, such as memory manager, cache manager, or some device drivers. Using standard Windows APIs, once a process has entered the real-time range, all its threads, even idle ones, must run... hang on, yeah. What's over at the bus stop? This game is lagging like crazy. I don't think there's anything, but just in case. A reservoir? That's it. Thanks. Must run at real-time priority levels. It is thus impossible to mix real-time and dynamic threads within the same process through standard interfaces. This is because set thread priority API calls the native entity set information thread, the thread base priority information class, which allows priorities to remain only in the same range. Furthermore, this information class allows priority changes only recognized in Windows API Delta -2 or 2, or time critical or idle, unless the request comes from CSRSS or another real-time process. In other words, this means the real-time process can pick threads priorities anywhere between 16 and 31. Even though a standard Windows API relative thread priorities would seem to limit its choices based on the table that was shown earlier. What are you studying? Oh, we are studying Windows internals. That is literally the name of the book. It is a book published by Microsoft. As mentioned, calling set thread priority is with one of the set special values causes a call to entity set information thread of the thread actual base priority information class. The kernel base priority for the thread can be directly set, including a dynamic range for real-time purposes. Note, the name real-time does not imply that Windows is a real-time OS in the common definition of the term. It's because Windows doesn't provide a true real-time OS facilities, such as guaranteed interrupt latency or a way for threads to obtain a guaranteed execution time. The term real-time really just means higher than all the others. And that has always puzzled me a little bit. I know, like, I always thought, like, you know, if it's called real-time, then shouldn't, like, execute things immediately. But no, it's just a name. Using tools to interact with priority. You can change and view the base process priority with Task Manager and Process Explorer. You can kill individual threads in the process with Process Explorer, and should be done, of course, with extreme care. You can view individual thread priorities with Performance Monitor, Process Explorer, or WinDebug. Although it might be useful to increase or decrease priority of a process, it typically does not make sense to adjust individual thread priorities within a process, because only a person who thoroughly understands the program, in other words, the developer, will understand the relative importance of the threads in the process. The only way to specify a starting priority class of a process is with the start command in the Windows command prompt. If you want to have, I'll go straight. If you want to if you want to have a program start every time with a specific priority, you can define a shortcut by using the start command at the beginning of the command with command/C. This runs the command prompt, executes the command on the command line, and terminates the command prompt. For example, to run Notepad in the idle process priority, the command is command/C start/low notepad.exe. Experiment. Examining and specifying process and thread priorities. To examine and specify process and thread priorities, follow these steps. Open Notepad, click on Details, column name base priority. Yeah, this is Task Manager stuff. Notice the Notepad process is running with normal priority, and the Task Manager shows the idle priority class as low. Open the Threads tab. Notice the thread priority. Base priority is 8, and current is 10. If you want, suspend and kill the thread, and now set priority as high. Now you'll see, the values jump. Windows System Resource Manager. Windows Server 2012 R2 Standard Edition and higher SKUs include an optionally installable component called Windows System Resource Manager, or WSRM. It permits the administrator to configure policies that specify CPU utilization, affinity settings, and memory limits, both physical and virtual, for processes. In addition, WSRM can generate resource utilization reports that can be used for accounting and verification of service level agreements with users. Policies can be applied to specific applications by matching the name of the image with or without specific command line arguments, user, or groups. These policies can be scheduled to take effect at certain periods or be enabled at all times. After you set a resource allocation policy to manage specific processes, the WSRM service monitors CPU consumption of the managed process and adjusts process base priorities when those processes do not meet their target CPU allocations. The physical memory limitation uses the function setProcessWorkingSetSizeX to set a hard working set maximum. The virtual memory limit is implemented by the service checking the private virtual memory consumed by the processes. See Chapter 5 for explanation on these memory limits. If this limit is exceeded, WSRM can be configured to either kill the process or write an entry to the event log. This behavior can be used to detect a process with a memory leak before it consumes all available committed memory in the system. Note that WSRM memory limits do not apply to address windowing extension or AWA memory, large page memory, or kernel memory, non-paged or paged pool. See Chapter 5 for more information on these terms. I'm thinking we stop at the next major landmark that we see. It's like a pit stop, whatever. A thread state. Before looking at thread scheduling algorithms, you must first understand the various execution states that a thread can be in. The thread states are as follows. Ready. A thread in the ready state is waiting to execute or to be swapped after completing a wait. Okay, that could have been worse. We could have died there. When looking for a thread to execute, the dispatcher considers only a thread in a ready state. Deferred ready. This state is used for threads that have been selected to run on a specific processor but have not actually started running there. This state exists so that kernel can minimize the amount of time the per processor lock on the scheduling database is held. Standby. A thread in this state has been selected to run next on a particular processor. When the correct conditions exist, the dispatcher performs a context switch to this thread. Only one thread can be in standby state for each processor on the system. Note that a thread can be preempted out of standby state before it executes. For example, for example, a higher priority thread becomes runnable before the standby thread begins execution. Running. After the dispatcher performs a context switch to the thread enters a running state and executes. The thread's execution continues until its quantum ends, and another thread at the same priority is ready to run. It is preempted by a higher priority state thread, it terminates, it yields execution, or voluntarily enters the waiting state. Speaking of waiting. A thread can enter the waiting state in several ways. A thread can voluntarily wait for an object to synchronize its execution. The OS can wait on the thread's behalf, such as to resolve a paging IO, or an environment subsystem can direct the thread to suspend itself. When the thread's wait ends, depending on the priority, the thread either begins running immediately or is moved back to the ready state. You will take a nap. Transition. A thread enters a transition state if it is ready for execution, but the kernel stack is paged out of memory. After its kernel stack is brought back into memory, the thread enters the ready state. Thread stacks are discussed in Chapter 5. Terminated. When a thread finishes executing, it enters this state. After a thread is terminated, the executive thread object, the data structure in system memory that describes the thread, might or might not be deallocated. The object manager sets a policy regarding when to delete the object. For example, the object remains in memory. An object remains if there are any open handles to the thread. A thread can also enter the terminated state from other states if it is killed explicitly by some other thread. For example, by killing the terminating thread Windows API. Initialize. The state is used internally while a thread is being created. Figure 4-8 shows the main state transitions for the threads. The numeric value shown represents the internal values of each state and can be viewed with tools such as Performance Monitor. The ready and deferred ready states are represented as one. This reflects the fact that the deferred ready state acts as a temporary placeholder for scheduling routines. This is true for the standby state as well. These states are almost very short-lived. Threads in these states always transition quickly to ready, running, or waiting. Milk. I love milk that's been sitting in the sun. Think this will fit? Of course it will. What am I kidding? Diesel. Don't need it, but thanks. Gas. Let me take that. It's kind of funny how, like, there's like ample amount of gas for us throughout this playthrough. Okay, that's even more gas. Holy shit. We're pretty much never run out of gas. Or oil, for that matter. Do you think using a different wheel is going to make a difference? I don't think so. Okay. And then with that, I'm going to call it here. Bit of a short stream this this time around. That's because I'm EP. It's 11:34 p.m. As you can tell from my inability to speak, that I'm very tired. So, I am going to find someone to raid. This theme song is giving me PTSD every time Mika loads. It plays that. Raid. So streaming. Send you guys over to her. You guys are on Twitch. If it will load. Raid. I think she's playing horror game. Oh, classic. Huh. Okay, I'll see you guys tomorrow for Xenosaga. Goodbye. Bye-bye. Why did... Oh, I finally figured out why it's, who's asking for the Streamlabs authentication. It's TITS for some reason. Weird. Anyways, I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.